Hello all, and by all I just mean you, Ms. Zimmer. We're the Tryhards, and we're here to review Othello, which was done by the Trinity Rep Theater. And here with me today is Brittany.
Hello.
And Brittany has a lot of background on this,
Yes.
and in fact we both do. We read the original play by Shakespeare, of course the Folklore edition, and we found it quite interesting. We read it over a course of 3 weeks, I believe.
Yes, they're correct.
And yeah, so let's get started. First and foremost, the choice to portray it in like a modern setting with all the guns and the modern army uniforms and all that stuff. I found it to be kind of a unique take on such like an old story. How do you feel about that?
I feel literally the exact same way, but I feel like the playwright decided to choose like portraying it in like a more of a modern way to appeal to like the audience for sure, because like if we just like took a look around, like we could see like all these other different high schools and like what else appeals to.
Some of them were like really noisy, it's kind of rude.
Yeah.
But yeah, more on that, like there was the scene where Desdemona asks Iago to sort of describe her, and Iago makes these sexist comments. Now, in the original Shakespeare version, he says a bunch of things that really, I mean, he says it and we kind of get it, but we wouldn't really connect to that.
Yeah.
But by changing it to jokes such as like, I don't know, why do women have smaller feet? Because they can stand closer to the stove. Ah ha ha, sexist, I get it. It makes us more intrigued.
Yeah.
It makes us, it's easier for us to connect.
Yeah, we can like comprehend it better than like when it's saying like, where art thou?
It's like, oh, I can rhyme a bunch of weird Shakespearean sexist slurs, which no one really gets nor connects to. And I think that was really done well. And in fact, a lot of things I feel like was changed so that it would definitely connect. For example, right before Iago delivers his soliloquy in Act 1, soliloquy, funny word, he sort of talks to Rodrigo about money, and the way he says it was very interesting. He always goes like, money, money, put money in your purse. It's like, it's something they would have just never done back in the days. Brittany, are you okay?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, how do you feel about their somewhat, well, that scene and also general edits to the script to make it more modern?
Yeah,
like,
actually,
how do you feel about that?
I actually connect to that completely. Not only that, like when Iago's like saying, like put money in my purse, like that. I also could see that in the play because like Othello, I saw him becoming like so violent. He was like throwing tables and chairs, and I thought that was very exaggerated from like what was written in the original script in the play. Yeah, I could see that. So
in fact, by seeing this, it really somewhat brought to light how Shakespeare could be done really well. And what I mean by this is that when I read Shakespeare, I thought it was this very sort of quaint, gilded age, very high-class thing where people were like, and then they would just kind of leave the stage. But I realized that you could really deliver the lines in a way that made it seem real, despite like not changing any of the original text. Like a lot of times when characters are dismayed in the play that Shakespeare wrote, they would say the word "oh," and I thought that was kind of silly, like "oh, monstrous." But like the way the actor for Othello, whose name I do not know, delivered his lines was very unique. When he was yelling "monstrous," it felt like he was actually distraught over that, and I found that was kind of nice. And going off of Othello, I feel although that it was generally well done, his transition from being this stalwart general who was unfazed by anything to this sort of deranged and cuckold man was kind of like sped through. I feel like the pacing was a bit off on that. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like that could have been improved upon.
Yeah, I'd say the same.
I see. And Iago, as a character, I feel like he was portrayed way more comedical, especially during the first 4 to 3 acts, than I would have honestly thought. I thought he would have been this very one-dimensional character where he was always plotting in his little corner without really saying much.
Yeah.
And he was always, well, whenever he talked, it would be kind of this, you know Jafar from Aladdin?
Yes.
Kind of like him, you know what I'm saying? You know, fun fact, the parrot on his shoulder is actually named Iago, just so you know. Anyways, I feel like he would have been just like that, but no, he's very comedical and he has like a lot of these different dimensions to him, yet he keeps to this one motive, which was really interesting how he showed like multiple facets of himself.
Okay, just before we wrap up, I just wanted to take a second to like applaud the cast and crew for like their work on the special effects.
Oh yeah, big time. when they finally got to Venice, like the sand coming
Yeah,
down, that was
absolutely.
absolutely, it made the whole thing very, very atmospheric. During the scene where Othello comes to kill Desdemona from the, you know, that little crevice between there. Fortunately, those green kids in those like squarish uniforms, they couldn't see that, but like there was a light behind Othello that cast his shadow like outwards. That was very long, dude.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
that really sort of gave this ominous feel.
Yes, absolutely.
That made it feel like, yes, this is about to happen. And also when during the murder scene for Rodrigo, when he gets killed and he attempts to kill Cassio, the lights going off and the soldiers coming in with flashlights attached to their guns, it made it feel like a real thing that was going on. It made it feel almost like somewhat of a modern action film almost.
Very
so
original.
it was really good. It was really well done. And I feel like they kind of used a bit of, they used sound sparsely, but they used it really well.
Like when they would hit the table.
Yeah,
like,
and that plus like the transition
those.
music was well placed. It all kind of aided with the situation. It wasn't like everywhere.
It was just like in the background.
It was kind of like well placed, is what I'm saying.
Affect how you...
Okay, so going off of what we said earlier, I feel like there's a major difference between when Iago is delivering his soliloquies and when he's persuading others to do his bidding.
Yeah.
And during one of his soliloquies, especially one of the key lines of the play, when he says like, "As asses are," like they're led very easily as asses are. He very hit that line very hard. He showed a lot of spite for Othello, which was kind of portrayed by the play itself. And I feel like that was really well done. Iago, as both an actor and a character, were really well portrayed.
Absolutely.
And a lot,
say.
very differently than I thought he would be. However, his kind of sidekick, Rodrigo, was portrayed more faint-heartedly than I ever thought he would be.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is intentional at all, but his bald spot just is perfect. It just fits perfectly with his character, honestly. It's kind of a doofus, and I feel like that's what they were going for. And I feel
like, actually, in the play, I feel like Rodrigo had a little bit more sense than what was portrayed in the play. Like in the play, he was like crying, and he was like, it showed like a lot more reliance on Iago. But I felt like in the play, Rodrigo was much more independent. He was like more like a man. But I mean, I just don't feel like the play.
Maybe that's because
well.
they like a lot of the things that were done in the play weren't written directly in the script. Like the crying thing wasn't written there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an actor's choice to portray that.
Oh,
So
yeah, true.
yeah, definitely. I feel like there's some things that have to be seen and aren't necessarily. I mean, Shakespeare could like write he cries or something, but like I mean, it's just not the same.
Yeah, exactly, true. Going off of the soliloquies that are said by Iago, I just wanted to point out this part when Iago is speaking, and he's like going off, like he's in a banter, he's like yelling, and he's like ranting about Othello, and then Iago comes, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Rodrigo comes, and then Iago is just like, "How now, Rodrigo?" in like a completely different tone, and like you could hear like everyone was like laughing, but I like because it was like funny, but like it just shows how completely different it is when he's like talking with someone versus like talking like in a soliloquy.
Oh yeah, big time. And moving on from that, let's focus on our main two hero and heroines of the story. Desdemona and Othello. Desdemona, we didn't touch on her, so let's do it. I feel like she was very one-dimensional throughout the whole thing. At the start of the play, she was always, "Oh, I'm so happy, oh, I love Othello," and then she goes into, "Oh, Othello doesn't love me, how do I make him love him?" I feel like there's not much, like, at least it wasn't shown. Like, in the book, you could see how she was more of a very strong woman. You can argue that you can kind of see that at the start when she wants to go with Othello, but it's not like, you know, like, pow.
I feel like Bianca is more of that, like...
Oh, yeah, Bianca was definitely more better portrayed.
Especially when she's, like, giving her feminist speech.
Yeah. No, that's Amelia. Bianca...
Amelia.
You know, Bianca was, like, going off of what you said, Bianca was slightly more well portrayed because, her scene kind of ends after she gets taken away by, the guards after Cassio's near attempted murder. But... when they're singing the Willow song, she's somewhat over there singing it with them, which I feel like it really gives Bianca like a third dimension to work off of, and it kind of adds in where Shakespeare did not. So it was really well done.
I don't know if could we just take a second to like in the play, Bianca is black, and I just
Yeah.
feel like that brings like so much more. I felt like when I saw her in like the cast, I like saw like Bianca's black, like that makes so much more sense to me because like I felt like it fits in with like the Shakespeare, but like does that
Yeah, and she was also like kind of shown as this very strong woman.
Mhm.
I feel like that kind of wasn't as well portrayed in the text itself. It
Mhm.
felt like Bianca was more or less like either she was begging or she was pissed.
Yeah.
Not this sort of independent middle ground.
Mhm.
I feel like that was kind of well done.
Mhm. But in the play, I like when she says like you can come to dinner.
Yeah.
I feel like that. I'm just like, why just ditch him?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. But I guess sticking to the script while trying to make it modern was a bit difficult. And I feel like that's why they omitted a bunch of stuff.
Mhm.
Like, you notice how the entire musicians and the clown scene was just omitted completely? A lot of scenes were cut and a lot of scenes were altered slightly. I feel like that was just done out of like time constraints because they didn't want to make this thing like 4 hours long. But, you know, I mean, it's not a large loss, but it would have been sort of entertaining to see the clown and the musicians and whatnot. Maybe that was kind of replaced by that party scene.
Yeah,
I
that
guess
was
with
very
that weird dude who was
entertaining.
shining
That was really
the
entertaining.
his like finger lights on his like Cassio's generals. Just like, I feel like that really distracted me though. Like I wasn't paying attention to Iago's soliloquy over there. I was just looking at that dude shining his lights everywhere and blasting music and stuff.
Mhm.
And I feel like that party scene kind of really it quintessentially like accentuates how they're trying to make it modern.
Yeah.
I guess to
Because they
connect
wouldn't have
with the
clowns
world. I mean,
like in a modern party.
yeah, that and like the whole scene sort of like they're singing some weird song. What was they singing like? Something about
It's
America?
Yeah, it was America.
Something like that, and I feel like that really hits it home with the whole modern
Mhm.
aspect of the thing.
For sure. And like soldier, like
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I don't know if they do that in the army. Force each other to drink. During Amelia's like wife delivery speech, how she says like her feminist speech basically about how like wives are people and we have desires and all that kind of stuff, and if they screw up, like they can't blame us entirely for us cheating. So I feel like when she was delivering that line, like before that she was kind of sort of playing with Desdemona, like sort of being sort of a friendly interaction with her, just kind of like friends. But after when she's delivering this line, she's like fired up. She's spiteful, a bit vengeful, and very, very passionate. I think that's a really good portrayal of how she should deliver that line.
I would agree with
And
that.
what's kind of funny is that during a lot of the serious scenes, the audience just kind of laughed. Especially when Othello was about to commit suicide. Like, he drew the weapon from his
Yeah,
crate. He's like,
I-
I have a weapon! And I'm like, well, yeah. Like, and then everyone started laughing. It was kind of funny. And the stabbing, when he, like, slits his own throat.
Oh, I missed that
It's
part. I
like-
looked away for 5 seconds to write something. I missed it.
It was like, I mean, a lot of people say it was unrealistic. I mean, I was fine with it, but I would have,
I mean, it
I
can.
would have personally
It
thought he
can
would
be
have shot
realistic
himself.
to like a certain
honestly.
extent, but you have to think again about. Actually, that is, you know, you have to think about it too, like a certain extent, because like you have to remember, like it is supposed to be in like this certain time frame, and like that's also why like they would of course be using like more guns and not like swords and stuff.
Wait, I
which
mean, like,
doesn't-
when Cassio kills Emilia, his wife, he shoots her with a pop gun, or I don't know if it's a cap gun, but whatever that thing is. He shot her with it,
Mhm.
and I, as soon as I like started watching, the first thing that came to my mind was Othello's gonna shoot himself. Like that's the first thing I thought while sitting down and starting to watch the play, and it's kind of surprising how they kept
feel like-
some stabbing things.
But I feel like a gun might have been harder to conceal. Let's just think about this.
I feel like
you
they
know,
didn't
yeah,
do that
it's
simply
just-
because Othello had a few lines after that, which was really important. Like the ones where he delivers to Desdemona about like how, oh, I'm gonna see you later or stuff like that, like pale face, and then like as if he shot himself in the head, he wouldn't really be able to do that, and that would really take away a lot from the scene, and that was a really crucial scene, which I feel like it was done well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Brian, and this is Brittany, and we are the Tryhards. Again, this is dedicated to a very special Ms. Zimmer, who was able to make this all possible, and please give us an A.